The story begins with a dangerous secret experiment called Project Rampage, whose goal is to create capsules capable of altering animal DNA. In other words, a group of scientists developed a substance that, if accidentally consumed by any living creature, would turn it into a massive, extremely dangerous version of itself. Now, we move thousands of kilometers above Earth to a space station where the situation has completely spiraled out of control. Most of the people there are dead, and their bodies are floating in zero gravity. In the middle of this terrifying scene, only one female scientist is still alive. She tries to save herself by sending a communication request, repeatedly asking for the escape capsule door to be opened so she can leave immediately. Otherwise, she will die too. However, she receives a response from Earth. If she wants to return alive, she must first collect the test samples from the station. Otherwise, the escape capsule will not be unlocked, and she will be left there to die. With no other choice, the scientist heads toward the lab area where the samples are stored. Just as she begins collecting them, alarms suddenly start blaring throughout the station. That's when she spots a massive, terrifying rat, grown nearly 100 times its normal size. It's a direct result of the experiment. She quickly gathers all 3 test samples into a container and runs for her life. The giant rat chases her as fires spread across the station. She finally reaches the door, rushes out, and slams it shut behind her, barely escaping with her life. She gets into the escape capsule and launches away from the space station. For a moment, she believes she's safe. She takes a breath of relief, but suddenly a warning alarm starts blaring inside the capsule. Cracks begin to spread across the front glass. She panics and starts screaming, and within seconds, the capsule explodes. The blast is so powerful that the entire capsule is completely destroyed. After that, we see the 3 sample containers falling toward Earth like fiery meteors. One lands in a forest where a wolf comes across it and inhales the gas leaking from the capsule. The second falls into the ocean, where a crocodile mistakes it for prey and swallows it. The third crashes into a zoo, where a rare white gorilla named George notices it. As he approaches, the capsule releases gas, and George inhales it, marking the beginning of a devastating chain of events that will soon threaten the entire world. The story then introduces us to our hero, Davis Okoye, a primatologist who takes care of wild animals. He brings a group of new interns to the section where the gorillas are kept. There, everyone notices a special gorilla who stands out from the rest. George, a rare albino gorilla. He is the same one who inhaled the dangerous gas the previous night. Being the last of his kind, he receives special care. What makes George unique is not just his strength, but also his incredible intelligence. He can communicate with humans using sign language, and he shares a deep bond with Davis, who has raised him since childhood. Their friendship is strong. Davis talks to him, jokes with him, and George understands everything. Davis truly loves and trusts all his animals, and George trusts him just as much. Soon after, Davis receives shocking news. George has suddenly attacked a bear and killed it. This surprises Davis because George would never attack without a reason. He immediately rushes to the scene to understand what's going on. When he interacts with George, he senses that something is wrong. George is no longer calm. He seems irritated and restless. When Davis asks why he attacked, George explains through sign language that he was scared because something else had attacked him first. At this point, Davis notices something even more concerning. George appears slightly larger than before, and his mood is changing in unusual ways. His aggression is increasing, which is not normal for a gorilla. Meanwhile, Davis is called in by the park authorities. When he arrives, he learns that a mysterious capsule has been found in a nearby forest. The moment he sees it, he realizes it's no ordinary object. Something much bigger and more dangerous is behind it. The story then shifts to another perspective, where we meet Claire Wyden and her brother Brett Wyden, who run a powerful company called Energy. This company specializes in genetic editing technology, manipulating DNA to create new and dangerous experiments. The Project Rampage being conducted in space was also their operation. Both of them are worried after learning that their samples have fallen from the space station. Brett believes their project has been ruined, but Claire disagrees. She shows him satellite CCTV images on a screen and says that. Claire says she's completely confident. She believes the samples are so powerful that they won't be easily destroyed and definitely won't go to waste. She marks the locations where the samples are most likely to have landed. Soon after, they send their private security team into the jungle to recover those samples at any cost. Meanwhile, the story introduces another important character, Dr. Kate Caldwell, a geneticist who specializes in DNA research. One morning, as she watches the news, she learns that a mysterious object fell to Earth at high speed the previous night, crashing into a zoo, where a gorilla has suddenly started changing. As soon as she hears this, she rushes to the location. Dr. Kate quickly arrives at the facility where George is being held and meets Davis. She tells him that the sample he has was actually created by her and asks him to hand it over. Davis doesn't believe her at first. She explains that she used to work for the company Energene, where they conducted dangerous experiments on animals. Davis, still skeptical, tells her she can leave because they have more important things to handle. But Kate insists, explaining that George is rapidly changing. His size is increasing, his aggression is growing, and he's no longer the same. She warns that if he doesn't receive an antidote soon, he could cause massive destruction across the world. She reveals that all of this is happening because of the gas released from the capsule, which George accidentally inhaled. Hearing this shocks Davis, especially since he had already noticed changes in George. He takes Kate along and explains that just last night, George was about 7 feet tall, but by morning he had already grown to around 10 to 11 feet, and his behavior had drastically changed. Kate then explains that the capsule George inhaled was part of a dangerous Energene experiment, where DNA from multiple animals, like sharks, blue whales, rhinos, and bats, was combined. Because of this, George is undergoing multiple mutations at once. The most dangerous part is that there's no limit to how much he could continue to grow. Suddenly, George becomes enraged. He grabs a metal cylinder inside his enclosure and starts smashing the cage. Even the reinforced doors can't withstand his strength. George breaks free and storms into the main area, completely out of control. Davis tries to calm him down using sign language, but it has no effect. George is no longer the same. Chaos erupts everywhere as George begins smashing vehicles like toys. Somehow, Davis manages to calm him slightly, but just then, security forces and police arrive and surround George. Davis begs them not to shoot, saying he can handle it. As he continues trying to communicate with George, a helicopter suddenly appears overhead. A soldier inside fires multiple tranquilizer shots at George. He tries to escape, but slowly loses consciousness and collapses to the ground. At the same time, we see the soldiers sent by Claire and Brett searching for the samples in the forest. Claire and Brett are watching them live. The soldiers have no idea what they're about to face. They begin to notice massive footprints on the ground, far larger than anything they've ever seen. Confused and alarmed, they try to make sense of it because they've never encountered anything this big before. The soldiers had never seen footprints like that before, but Claire and Brett immediately realize what's going on. Their samples have been inhaled by some creature, and it has grown many times its original size. The soldiers quickly move into attack position. Suddenly, a gigantic wolf attacks them. It strikes with such speed and power that the entire team is wiped out within seconds. One senior soldier somehow manages to escape and calls in a chopper for extraction. As the helicopter descends to pick him up, the wolf chases him down. A soldier from the chopper opens fire, but the wolf instantly shifts its focus, leaps high into the air, grabs the helicopter mid-flight, and destroys it. The last surviving soldier is left frozen in fear, staring at the burning wreckage, when suddenly the wolf appears behind him and kills him in a single strike. Claire and her brother Brett watch this entire unfold live. Meanwhile, Davis and Dr. Kate are blamed for the destruction caused by George and are taken into custody. They are transported on a military plane where George is also being held, unconscious inside a massive reinforced cage. On the plane, they meet Agent Harvey Russell, who works for a secret government agency. His job is to handle dangerous creatures that are no longer normal animals and have become a threat to humanity. Russell briefs them about each other. He reveals that Davis is a former army soldier who has been part of many dangerous missions and now works with animals. He also mentions that Kate had previously been imprisoned for attempting to steal research data from Energene, but Davis doesn't care about any of that. His only concern is George. Back at Energene, Claire and Brett are dealing with the consequences. Brett is panicking, convinced their experiment is completely out of control and that government agencies will come after them. But Claire remains calm. She tells him she always has a backup plan. She takes Brett to the rooftop of their office building and shows him a massive tower. She explains that it's a special technology based on a radio frequency signal. Once activated, it will emit a signal that attracts the mutated animals toward its location. Claire lays out her plan. All the dangerous creatures will gather in one place, either kill each other or be eliminated by the military, and afterward they can recover DNA samples from their bodies and continue their experiment. As soon as the signal is activated, we see its effect begin. The giant wolf senses it and starts heading straight toward the city. The mutated crocodile begins emerging from the ocean, and at the same time, George is affected too. George suddenly wakes up from his deep sedation. He rises to his feet, now completely out of control. Inside the plane, he begins causing massive destruction, attacking everyone in sight. The soldiers fire continuously at him, but the bullets have no effect. Davis quickly realizes that staying on that plane now means certain death. Davis realizes that staying there means certain death. He quickly puts on a parachute and helps Dr. Kate strap one on as well, then pushes her out of the plane. The gorilla is still attacking wildly inside. Davis notices that Agent Russell is still alive, so he grabs him and jumps out of the plane too. Moments later, the military plane completely loses control and crashes in a massive explosion. The three of them somehow manage to land safely. Davis fears that his partner, the gorilla George, might have died, but when they look around, they realize George has already escaped. Now he is also moving toward the signal. Russell thanks Davis for saving his life. Meanwhile, a government investigation begins against Energene. Multiple agents arrive at Claire and Brett's office. Brett panics, but Claire cleverly handles the situation, acting completely normal and cooperating fully with the investigation to avoid suspicion. She even tells the agents that she is ready to help the government in any way possible. On the other side, Davis, Kate, and Russell are taken to an Air Force base where they meet military officials. They are informed that all three creatures are rapidly heading toward the city, and if they are not stopped, massive destruction is inevitable. Davis tries to explain that the animals are not at fault. He says this isn't a coincidence. They are being deliberately drawn toward the city. Dr. Kate backs him up and explains that this situation was anticipated. If the experiment ever went out of control, a radio frequency signal could be used to attract the animals to one location, and that's exactly what's happening now. She warns that if the military attacks them, it won't be very effective and will only cause more destruction to the city. Instead, she requests that they be given a chance to retrieve the antidote and stop the creatures. But the colonel refuses. To him, these creatures are now nothing but threats that must be eliminated. At that moment, a soldier brings in orders stating that Davis and Kate should be taken into custody for questioning, as they may be involved in what's happening. Davis tries to convince the colonel otherwise, but no one listens. As the soldiers begin escorting them away, Davis cleverly overpowers them and knocks them unconscious so he and Kate can escape. They sneak their way to a helicopter, but just then, Agent Russell appears. Instead of stopping them, he chooses to help and hands them the helicopter keys. Davis and Kate take off. Meanwhile, the giant wolf reaches the army forces positioned in its path toward the city. The military does everything they can to stop it, but the creature is far too powerful and fast. Within moments, it wipes out the entire unit. No soldier survives. Seeing this, the colonel realizes they are not dealing with a normal animal. As the situation spirals out of control, he makes a dangerous decision. He orders a special missile strike, insisting that no matter what it takes, the creatures must be destroyed. Some officers try to stop him, warning that the city has not been fully evacuated. If a missile is launched now, thousands of innocent civilians could die along with the creatures. But the colonel refuses to listen and gives the order to attack. At the same time, Davis and Kate, flying in the helicopter, begin heading toward. They are now very close to the city, and what they see leaves them stunned. George is no longer the same. He has turned into a gigantic monster, destroying everything in his path. Suddenly, the water begins to violently shake, and from it emerges a massive crocodile. It has also been fully affected by the dangerous sample and is now just as deadly. Now, in the middle of the city, all three monsters, George, the wolf, and the crocodile, are advancing with full face. The army tries to stop them, but they are far too powerful, crushing everything in their way as they move in one direction. They have only one goal: to reach the source of the radio frequency signal, no matter what stands in their path. Meanwhile, the government uncovers the truth about Energene. Most of their files and data have been recovered, but one main server is still locked. Its password known only to Claire Wyden and Brett Wyden. At the same time, Agent Harvey Russell informs Davis of another thumbnail development. The colonel has ordered a high-level missile strike, which will hit the city in about 30 minutes. Time is running out. Hearing this, Davis and Dr. Kate immediately head toward the Energene building, knowing the antidote can only be found there. They manage to get inside and search for the lab where the samples were created. Most of the data and hard drives have already been removed, but Kate knows the system well since she used to work there. Using her knowledge, she finally locates a secret storage area where the antidote is kept inside an RPM container. She retrieves 3 doses, but just then, Claire and Brett arrive. They hold Kate at gunpoint gunpoint and take the antidote from her. However, Kate cleverly hides a small vial of the antidote without anyone noticing. Claire forces Kate to come with them, and when Kate refuses, Claire shoots Davis in the stomach. He collapses to the ground. Then they take Kate to the top floor of the building. Suddenly, the building starts shaking like an earthquake. In reality, the giant crocodile has arrived and is climbing up the structure. The other two monsters, George and the wolf, have also reached the area. Claire and Brett rush with Kate toward their helicopter to escape, but before they can leave, George appears and smashes the helicopter into pieces, tossing it aside like a toy. He then starts attacking the radio frequency tower, hitting it repeatedly. At that moment, despite being injured, Davis arrives and saves Kate. Together, they quickly come up with a plan. They must give George the antidote at any cost so he can stop the other creatures. Just then, Claire shows up again and tries to attack them, pointing a gun at both of them. But this time, Davis loudly calls out to George. George's attention instantly shifts toward Claire. Taking advantage of the moment, Kate secretly slips the antidote vial into Claire's bag. In the very next second, George grabs Claire and swallows her alive, along with the antidote inside her bag. Now, Davis and Kate wait anxiously for the antidote to take effect. It won't return George to his original size, but it can restore his mind and self-control. At that same moment, Agent Russell also arrives at the scene. Agent Russell also makes it into the building. There, he finds Brett trying to escape while carrying a laptop filled with all the company's secret data. Seeing his condition, Russell cleverly manipulates him and says, "You won't be able to run with something that heavy. Give it to me and I'll let you go." Out of fear, Brett hands over the laptop, but the moment he tries to flee, debris from the collapsing building falls on him, killing him instantly. At the same time, the giant wolf and crocodile tear their way up through the building and reach the top. The wolf begins biting into the tower with its sharp teeth, as if it's drawn to the signal like radiation. The entire building starts shaking violently on the verge of collapse. Davis and Dr. Kate somehow reach a damaged helicopter. They cling to it, trying to survive, and within seconds, the entire building begins to collapse, with all three massive creatures still on it. The structure crashes down in a huge explosion. Somehow, Davis and Kate survive. They climb out of the wreckage and see injured people all around. Then, through the dust, George appears. Davis stands in front of him and tries to communicate using sign language, wanting to know if George has regained control. After a few tense seconds, George gives a slight smile, even jokes a little, and recognizes Davis. It becomes clear the antidote has worked. George is back to his old self, though now he is many times larger than before. Davis tells George they must now work together to stop the remaining monsters and end the destruction. George agrees. Meanwhile, Davis tells Kate to go and stop the military from launching the missile strike, because now they have a chance to end this without more destruction. Just then, the giant wolf and crocodile emerge from the rubble. Davis, armed with a gun, stands alongside George to face them. The crocodile lets out a terrifying roar and charges at George, but George quickly grabs a large piece of metal railing from the debris and smashes it into the crocodile's jaws. Suddenly, the wolf attacks George from behind, but the powerful gorilla grabs the wolf, spins it around, and throws it far away. The wolf rises again, lunges, and manages to knock George down. As George tries to recover, the crocodile stands up behind him. Davis panics and fires his weapon at the wolf. The wolf turns toward Davis in rage and leaves George, running behind a many more building. Before George can react, the wolf bursts through the structure and leaps straight at Davis. But Davis acts quickly. He ducks down at the last moment, causing the wolf to crash directly into the crocodile behind him. The impact enrages the crocodile, which now sees the wolf as its enemy. It grabs the wolf by the neck, slams it repeatedly, and tears its head off before devouring it. Meanwhile, Dr. Kate reaches the military and desperately pleads with them not to launch the missile. She explains that George has recovered and can stop the remaining creature. Back on the battlefield, the crocodile turns toward George. Davis keeps firing at it, but it has no effect. Realizing how powerful the crocodile is, Davis orders George to run, because the crocodile is far stronger than him. Davis tries to distract it, continuing to fire, but the crocodile locks onto him and starts chasing him instead. Davis runs for his life into the debris of the destroyed buildings. Then the crocodile launches a brutal attack, knocking Davis to the ground. Just as it's about to finish him off, his partner George arrives, lifting a massive truck and smashing it straight into the crocodile's head. Now the crocodile turns its full attention to George. It viciously attacks him, badly injuring him, and eventually grabs hold of George's leg. But Davis rushes in and throws a bomb into the crocodile's ear. Seconds later, the bomb explodes. damaging it, but not enough to stop it. The crocodile quickly recovers and moves toward the Gale George, swinging its tail at Davis. George grabs the tail mid-attack, saving Davis, but the crocodile violently whips its tail, throwing George across the area. George crashes into the rubble, where a large steel rod pierces through his body. George writhes in pain as the crocodile continues its relentless assault, slamming him again and again. He is now critically injured. Desperate to help, Davis looks around and spots a helicopter. He runs to it, jumps in, and starts it up. Using the mounted guns, he fires at the crocodile. The bullets barely affect it, but they do draw its attention away from George. Davis then launches a missile from the helicopter, causing a massive explosion. For a moment, he thinks it's over, but the crocodile emerges from the smoke, completely unharmed. It lunges forward and tears the helicopter apart. Now it turns toward Davis again, but at the perfect moment, George rises from above, gripping a massive steel rod. With one anthem burst of strength, he leaps down and drives the rod straight through the crocodile's eye and into its skull, killing it instantly. George collapses from his injuries. When Davis rushes to him, George closes his eyes. Davis is heartbroken, staring at him with tears in his eyes. But in the final moment, George makes a small movement. He slowly raises his finger and curls it. Davis instantly realizes George is joking. He shouts, "You're still messing with me?" And George starts laughing. And with that, the story comes to an end. If you want to see the next part of this story, comment part 2 below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, Recap Movie Mex, for more amazing stories. See you soon with the next one.